Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped metal. Please visit our website, The Metal Pit, at the www.themetalpit.org, and you can catch us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit, and on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com at The Metal Pit 666. And if you have any album suggestions, top 10 list suggestions, complaints, or whatever, email us at info@themetalpit.org. Tonight, I have with me two of my writers who have been on a couple podcasts with me together. We have Jim from Nova Scotia. How you doing, Jim?
I'm happy to be here. This is awesome. Iron Maiden this is great. This is great.
And we have Staicha from the Hardy Hooligan Restaurant in Hamilton, Ontario. How are you, Staicha?
I'm doing great, Blake. Thanks for having me on. And I think also you, Jim, and I are just a great trio for podcasts.
Oh yeah, we should start a band.
Yeah, seriously. I call no vocals.
I'll give vocals a shot.
Okay, perfect. Jim's the singer.
Yeah,
I'll play guitar badly.
Well, I can't do I can play guitar more badly than, well, I don't think you play it badly, but I would definitely play it badly.
All right. Well, luckily you're on drums by default, so.
Well, I can play a mean triangle.
Oh, okay, perfect. Triangle and vocals.
So did you guys do anything metal this week?
Anything metal this
Did you listen to anything new this week? Or I know Jim gets metal in the mail like every day, but I don't know if you want to mention anything.
I'm going back to the back catalog of Incantation, so I just got a new CD, and but the new Ace Frehley track got released today, and it's actually really good. I love Ace, so it's really good. It's better than anything Kiss has put out lately.
Has Kiss put anything out? Has Kiss put anything out lately?
In the last 15 years.
just a farewell tour every year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
But supposedly this is their last farewell tour that they're on right now. I think. So. But they've missed a few shows, right? Because Paul Stanley's been sick or something.
Yeah, they canceled there in Ottawa and Toronto, unfortunately. I mean, two really good markets, which kind of sad for the Canadian fans there in Toronto and Ottawa.
Yes. Okay. So as Jim leaked, we're going to talk about Iron Maiden. Well, he didn't leak it, whatever. And we're going to go back to 1981. So talk about their second studio album, Killers, of course. And this is the second and last album with vocalist Paul Di'Anno on vocals. I'm not going to give a bio about Iron Maiden. If you don't know who Iron Maiden is, well, there's 3 other podcasts. I probably said a bio on those ones possibly. So go listen to those if you really don't know who Iron Maiden is. This album was the first with guitarist Adrian Smith to join the band. And he's been on every album since, or he's still in the band anyway. He might have been gone for, I forget. I get confused. I know they have 3 guitarists now, but I know he's still in the band now. And let's see, Paul Di'Anno was fired after problems with his stage performances arose from alcohol and cocaine use. And this was also the first album.
What?
Oh, yeah. Well, as far as we know, he's like the only one of the band that ever did it, or at least that ever admitted to doing anything.
Yeah, right.
We never hear. No, I know, but we never hear anything. If the others did it, at least I guess they did it under control. That they didn't have any problems, I guess. I don't know. Well, Clive Burr might have had some problems too, because he also got kicked out of the band. And there was a few other people before that. But anyway, and this album was also produced by Martin Birch, and this is the first album that Martin Birch produced, and he went on to produce their next 8 albums until Fear of the Dark. And like I said, I'm not going to give a bio on the band. Now I will ask, and I'm not going to say when I first heard Iron Maiden. I will briefly say Number of the Beast is the first album I ever heard. And then right after that, I went out and bought the first two Iron Maiden albums, plus the Made in Japan live EP. So for you guys, Staicha, when did you first hear Iron Maiden or hear Killer's album?
So Iron Maiden is one of those bands that I can't remember. I don't really remember a time in my life when I didn't know who Iron Maiden was. And I think it's sort of kind of the, and I'm not saying Iron Maiden is a white trash band, but it's a white trash badge of honor up north to listen to bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. So they were just in every household. Same as you, Number of the Beast would have absolutely been the first one I heard. Um, that said, I am a Diano era person, and I feel like that theme is going to come up a lot. So the first two albums are my favorite. But I feel like, yeah, you grow up listening to classic albums like Number of the Beast and Power Slave. If I had to guess, I'd probably think I was like 10 or 11 when I first heard the first two albums. But yeah, they rapidly became my favorite.
And Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same thing. I'm thinking about it. That's a good question because I'm thinking about it like it's always been in my life. So I don't have I think the first cassette I got was probably made in Japan. I got it for Easter way, way, way back. And I think the first probably Number of the Beast and then went backwards, like everybody's saying. I think my number two album of all time on my top 50 was Power Slave, and there's lots of reasons for that. But it's always been there. It's always been a staple with my friends and where I grew up and at school and that. So, I mean, the album, like I talked about it on I think almost every podcast. The album covers is the first thing you saw when you were walking into the record store, and I mean, it just grabbed your attention. So, but yeah, I think it was made in Japan. I got a cassette for Easter really long time ago, and me and my buddies they copied it, and we just played the hell out of it. So it was awesome.
Jim, are you from Nova Scotia?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
born and raised.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention, you mentioned the top 50 thing. Yes, we did our own top 50 list, and I had Killers number 19, and my friend Staicha there had Killers number 18.
Whoa.
Nice.
But Jim you didn't have Killers on your top 50, but yes, you had Power Slave number 2, and I had a few Iron Maiden ones in there, I think. Okay, so Killers is the second studio album. I already said that. Oh, I already did that part. Sorry. Confused. Actually, and you mentioned the album cover, and then usually lately on podcasts, we have talked about the album cover before we talk about the songs. But our top 10 list today is going to be our top 10 Iron Maiden album covers or single covers or live album covers. So we're not going to talk about the cover anymore now until after the album, because then we're going to talk about a lot of Iron Maiden album covers. So we're going to get right into the songs then. Oh, I am going to say one thing. Excuse me. Usually I visit the website, setlist.fm, and I did take a quick look, but I'm not going to say much about it. All I'm going to say is the song Wrathchild, which we will get to, is has been played over 1,200 times live. It is the most songs played live from this album, and they still play it a lot in their sets. It's like the 8th highest song that they've played live. And that's really, I don't think I have, and I'll have one more thing to say about that site when we get to that song on this album. So we're going to start off with the instrumental, The Ides of March. And another thing, this is the only Iron Maiden album to have 2 instrumentals on it. Even though for me, this is kind of more or less like an intro to the album, not necessarily, even though it is an instrumental, it was always just an intro to the album for me and intro to Wrathchild. But what do you think of The Ides of March, Jim?
I mean, it's a wicked way to start the album. I mean, it's got a killer drums in it, and the guitar is awesome. I love it. It's always been, it's not like a lot of intros, especially back in the olden days. They, a lot of the stuff is skippable. This is definitely not skippable. I think it really brings a lot to the album, and it leads into Wrathchild. I mean, it's an awesome instrumental. And it really shows off their chops as a band. I think it's really, really good. I love it. I have no issues with it at all. I'm glad it's the first track. And like you say, Blake, I think of it as an addition to Wrathchild. So
now, before we go further, so did you hear Killers and Iron Maiden more or less at the same time, or did you hear the debut album before you listened to this one? Do you remember that at all or not? I know you heard the
Probably
Northeast
probably
verse.
the debut I heard before Killers, just because it had like Running Free and Iron Maiden on it, and that, so it was a little bit more of the kind of the hits from like from the from the era of Deano, where I kind of probably gravitated towards that. But this is definitely, I mean, we'll talk about it probably at the end, but this is definitely a better album production wise and really growth wise for them for sure.
And Stacia, what did you think of the Ides of March? Do you like that?
For me, it depends on how I'm listening. So I have, for the first two albums, I have them on every medium. So I've got them on tape, CD, and vinyl. And if I'm like, especially if I'm listening to it on vinyl, it's such a great intro. And Jim, I really agree. It shows off their chops a lot, and that kind of like marchy sort of like drum beat. Iron Maiden is really good at those epic build up intros. That said, though, if I'm listening to it on like CD, or if I was making a compilation list of like, best Maiden tracks, I wouldn't put it on there. It just, to me, makes a lot of sense with the flow of the album. I don't know if I would listen to it a lot as a standalone song, and it's not because it's an instrumental, because track 5 on Transylvania on the first album is it's like my top 3 favorite Iron Maiden songs of all time. But this one, I do really like it, but it makes the most sense on like just in the flow of the album.
Well, I'm from the era, of course, of the vinyl. So, of course, there would always be, you put it on and, you hear that first.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if I was from the age of Spotify, which of course I use Spotify, but I mean, if that was the only way I listen to music, I'm sure it would be one I would probably skip. Again, not that it isn't good, it is good. It's just that you want to get to the songs with the vocals too, right? Most of the time. So then we go to Wrathchild, and I will let Stacia talk about Wrathchild.
Oh, I mean, so I think this is one of their best songs. It's definitely one of my favorites. And there's this this is gonna be really weird. It's like after the second chorus, there's this little like drum fill, and it's just like one of my favorite moments on the album. Wrathchild is it's not my favorite one. It's up there for sure on this album, but that one section in the song, it's like the thing I'm waiting for all the time. This is a good also song to show people when I'm trying to describe early Iron Maiden. So this is a good foot in the door for this era of Maiden for sure. But it's such a good one, and a standout for Killers.
I love that drum thing too. So Jim,
right?
That's cool. Now Stacia hits it on the head with her description of that, because it's kind of definitely, I agree with that. It's a gateway song. If you want to get into the Deano era and you're a new fan, that this is a song that's a must out of the probably 3 or 4 songs that you want to really kind of sink your teeth into. But I mean, it has that intro as soon as you hear it on Anywheres, you know exactly what it is. You're like, it just gets you going, gets your foot stomping, and I mean, it's awesome. And I think 6 Feet Under did a cover of it, I think on a re-release of an album, which they did a pretty good job of it. I mean, they're pretty heavy in that, but but I mean, oh no, it's one of my, I get like Stacia. It's not my favorite song on the album, but it's a phenomenal song, and I mean, it's I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's in the top half for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
My notes, my first line is love the little drum thing in there, but I didn't really know what to call it because it's not like it's a drum solo. It's like 5 seconds, but
It's like a little drum fill. I love that
Yeah.
everybody else noticed that too, because I was like, I'm gonna sound stupid saying this, but there's this like 5-second little fill. It's so good.
No, yeah, I always love that part in there. And I always love Clive Burr's drumming, even though I love Nico's too, I guess. But I always love the first 3 albums drumming too. I loved how it was out there. Okay, then we go to Murders in the Rue Morgue. Jim.
I like this song. I mean, it starts off with that kind of slow start, and then it just absolutely takes off. This is probably my 3rd best on the album, and it's a tight race between 1, 2, and 3. And I I'm going to call it 1-1. And you know what? This is my second. I'm going to call the two that I'm going to bring up a little later on 1 and 1. But I mean, it's an awesome track, and it's got a perfect spot, I think, on the album. It's building up. You finish off with Wrathchild, which is just such a hit, and then you go right into this, which is another strong track. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's a great track.
Staicha.
It's funny, right? It's true, because this has got to be one of the most talked about on the album, and coming right after Wrathchild. I think so. It's not it's definitely a really good one, and I like it. It's not my favorite either. The intro was kind of funny. So I think that Iron Maiden, like I said, they're so good at those epic intros. And I know the theme of me being on podcasts is like nothing is ever fast enough. So I'm not like thrilled about slow intros, but I do think Iron Maiden can do it really well. Even think of things like Klansman. I think that has got, such like that slow intro is such a good build. If I'm able, kind of fast forward the intro, if I'm being honest, because I'm just like, I just want to get to it. So I do like it, but I think for me, I do think the intro's good. It just doesn't really hit me right. It's a little slow for my taste.
And I like this. Well, I like every song pretty much. I guess we'll talk here, so I don't really need to say that. But this song is of, where did I see that? Oh, the song, of course, is about someone who came across a murder scene and is mistaken for the killer. And just like me, he can't speak French, so he would run away from people if they're speaking French. Okay, I wouldn't do that, but but that it was based on a short story of the same name by Edgar Allan Poe, who they also use for some other lyric content later. Now, some of the lyrics on this album, which we'll get to with a few more of the songs, are a lot more darker than they ever sing about anymore. But of course, they were younger and they're trying to make a name for themselves, and they were Satanists, according to some people. So they had to make a statement early on, and now they sing about flowers and butterflies and stuff. I guess they don't do that either, but they don't really sing about murders too much anymore, I don't think.
Well, this is the thing with the Di'Anno era albums. I love the writing so much. I don't think Di'Anno's a better vocalist than Dickinson. Like, I'm not unhinged. I understand that Dickinson is the superior vocalist. I just love the Di'Anno era so much more. I feel like this is gonna come up. My favorite album is the first one. I love Killers, but like nothing will ever touch the first album for me. To me,
Right.
that album is just like all killer, no filler. I love every song so much, but the writing is so different. It's got kind of a little bit more of a punk edge for sure. And the writing is, even the lyrics I like more in these first two albums. So it is definitely different. I don't know how much Satan I hear, but yeah, the fast-paced, anxious murder vibe is definitely there.
Well, I guess Satan comes on the next album. I guess I just meant this has more
Yeah.
killing, and then the next one has more Satan, even though it's really probably only the one song.
I think killing and Satan is going to be par for the course for most metal, so we just have to kind of lean into that.
And you said something I was going to comment on. Oh, and we could talk about this anytime, but of course we got a different singer here. And I was just thinking, as I was preparing for this podcast, I'm thinking, what if The Number of the Beast and Peace of Mind were the first two Iron Maiden albums with Bruce Dickinson, and then he left, and then Paul Di'Anno came into the band? Like, how would those songs sound with Paul Di'Anno singing? Just like we do with Bruce Dickinson, if they ever sing these songs live, we think, like, I Remember Tomorrow from the first album. I don't think Bruce Dickinson could sing that one anywhere near as good as Di'Anno does with his voice. It's a slow one.
Yeah.
But I love that one from the first album, and we'll get to a slower one here. But I don't know. I was just thinking about that, how it would be different if, it was reversed or something, and how it would sound if Paul Di'Anno was trying to sing like The Number of the Beast or whatever. It would be so much different.
I mean, I don't think, Di'Anno, it's funny because there's so many dickhead musicians I like. Like, obviously I love Kronos, but and I know Di'Anno is just a total wad. But I don't think, as much as I like that era, I don't think he could hit anything Bruce Dickinson does.
No.
And Dickinson fits so well into what Iron Maiden became
Yes.
as they grew. But that like the early like a little bit more punk infused metal that the first two albums were, like Dano just fits so perfectly. That said though, whenever I see them live and Dickinson does the like any song, because I mean they still perform songs from the first couple albums. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's any kind of a loss. Like I think he does really well, and I think he sits within the song really nicely. Like he doesn't try to bravado his way through the first ones. I do, from what I remember, he does it really, really well. But yeah, it's just the songwriting to me will always be the best in these first two.
Now I'm going to contradict you on this next song, though, because we have Another Life, which is a song. I love this song. Don't get me wrong there. I love this song and I love the lyrics, but there's not very many lyrics. They just keep saying the same thing 2 or 3 different times. I'm not sure why they didn't try to think of more lyrics for the song, but I love the lyrics. As I lay here lying in my bed, sweet voices coming to my head. And I love hearing that line, but they do it like 3 times, I think, in the song. And it's a 3-minute song, but I'm just surprised that they didn't have more lyrics to the song. They just kept saying the same thing over and over again. So what do you have to say about that, Staicha?
Do you want to hear my notes on this? Because that's hilarious that you say that, because my notes are like, now this is a fucking intro. That's an intro I like. This is a face melter. This is a windows down, scream along driving song. And I love this. I think this is one of the best songs. This is one. It's not my number one favorite on the album. I think my number one favorite on the album might come as a surprise, but this is definitely one of them. Like this is what I want in like an old school metal banger. This, like my CD player in my car has seen this song a lot of times, and my steering wheel has had this banged on it a lot of times. But I'm also not a lyrics kind of person. Like there are songs that I've listened to over 600 times. I'm like, I don't know the lyrics. I can tell you how the squealy guitar goes, but like I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really that much into the lyrics. It's mostly with the podcast that I start, because I know some people talk about lyrics, especially Ken. When Ken's on a podcast, he'll talk about lyrics a lot. So that's kind of why I get into the lyrics a little and try to. But I look back because we're going to get to a line in a song here and go, I didn't even know they said that on this thing, because I didn't really pay that close of attention to it. But anyway, Jim, what do you think of Another Life?
Oh, I mean, it's an awesome song. Killer guitars on it, and I like the lyrics as well. Like, but I'm so tired of living, I might as well end today. I mean, it's the whole. You're right. He keeps saying the same verses over and over again, but it's a good dark metal song, and I agree that this is the type of song that has Deano's stamp on it, and his darker voice definitely. And I think this is probably an overlooked song in the Maiden catalog and from these earlier albums. I think it doesn't get as much love as it probably should, but no, I love this song. I love the lyrical content. I love the fact it's a bit darker, and I like you guys hit it on the head. This is old school Iron Maiden 100%. Again, not my 1 favorite, but still, the whole album. I love the whole album. There's not a secondary track for me on here. So, but no, this is a great track. I love it.
I think this is my too.
I think this is my second favorite song on the album.
Cool.
And they have played it over 300 times live, but I think now I've seen Iron Maiden, maybe, since I'm not going to talk about this after the album thing like I usually do, but I've seen Iron Maiden around 10 times. I think I've only seen this song played live once of those 10 times. And that was when they did a tour where they only played songs from the first 4 albums, which was the best for me. I mean, the first 5 are my favorites, but whatever, we couldn't have Power Slave in there. But so it was great to hear songs like this that you don't hear very often usually. And I'm sure if Another Life has been played 300 times, a lot of it was probably on the Killers tour, I suppose, too. And like, I don't know how much they would play it after. So then we move on to the second instrumental, Genghis Khan.
Blake, before you go into Genghis Khan, let me ask you a question, because I'm kind of like stuck on this now. Do you like the Misfits?
Oh, I love the Misfits. Yeah,
I don't really. I know who they are, but I didn't really listen to them much. No.
Okay. Because I was thinking, when you think of, because I like total dickhead singers. Like the Danzig era is my favorite.
Yeah.
Like that's the Misfits I like, is the Danzig era, and the lyrics for those songs are so simple. Like if you listen to We Are 138, if you listen to Return of the Fly, it's like I don't really give a shit if a song says the same two sentences over and over for 3 minutes until it's over, or in the case of the Misfits, like a minute and a half and it's over. So I think, yeah, stuff like that like doesn't even faze me because of how much I love the early Misfits. So, but
Well,
that's
don't get
like
me,
what
I
I
don't
was
care.
thinking of.
I don't care either. I was just making a point that you
Oh
said
yeah.
what great lyrics there are on the album, and I thought, well, couldn't they have thought of a few more sentences?
Sometimes
But
that'd be a
yeah,
few sentences too many.
that's right. Okay, Genghis Khan. Jim, what do you think of this instrumental?
Yeah, it's they put on a second instrumental on the album. I thought that was pretty cool. It's a great track. It's got that cool drum intro into it. It's a really groovy track. I like it. It's definitely, again, not a skippable instrumental, and it's kind of ballsy putting two instrumentals on your second album. I think that says a lot. But there is different versions of the album, in all fairness, where there's an extra song on I believe the American release. But no, I love. I think it fits in great. Again, you're heading into a really good song. You just left a really good song, another instrumental, and again, it shows off their chops. I mean, these guys are massively talented as musicians, and it's like I say, it's ballsy to put two instrumentals. You don't lose your audience, and it's one of the calling cards that make Killers such a good album, I think.
That's
And
actually such a good point, like that it's ballsy. I never even thought
Yeah.
about it, but it really is to have two on there. I think I never think about it because, like I said, Transylvania is one of my favorite. Like I can't air guitar hard enough to that song when it comes on. So I love, and I mean it's the same thing, right? Like you've got I think I always forget about the opening of this, but it's like track 5 on both albums is an instrumental. And so I always imagine like at some point halfway through the recording, Dan was like, I'm just getting the fuck out of here. You guys go ahead without me. And then you have no Diano on this. But yeah, it's true. I mean, it does showcase them. And I mean, it's like the drums, the guitar, like it's all really good. And being honest, this to me, I like this instrumental better than the first track. I think I'm just like primed for that instrumental to come in like halfway through the album.
mhm. Well, I was gonna say, never mind. I like the song, but for me, I could have did without it being on the album, but whatever. Because they kind of stopped. They stopped doing it. I know Power Slave has an instrumental. I'm not sure. I think when that might be the last time they did it. I can't remember. There isn't an instrumental on Somewhere in Time. I don't think
No.
Seventh Son. So I think the Lost for Words, which is like the last song where they ran out of words. But Power Slave, where they did that one, yeah, I think that was the last time they did an instrumental that I can recall. Anyway, then we finish off side 1 with Innocent Exile, Staicha.
So it's funny because for absolutely no reason whatsoever, I always kind of forget about this song. Like every time it comes on, I'm like, oh right, this one, which is weird because the melody to it is really, really unique. Honestly, I'm probably just getting like too amped up for like the last tracks. But and I mean it is a little bit moody. But I mean that in a way where it's kind of it's sort of bluesy to me, but that might also just be because of the lyrics. But I mean, it is a genuinely really fantastic song. And yeah, listening to it again, I was like, I think I'm just so excited for Killers that I don't pay enough attention to it.
And Jim, what do you think of the song?
Yeah, it's a great song. I mean, Stacia hit it on the head. This is definitely got that again. I mean, yes, we're talking about Iron Maiden, we're talking about Killers, the second album, but this is the Maiden sound through and through. And I mean, again, I love the drums on it. This is probably one of my top songs on it. Still not my number one or my number 1B, but it's up there. It's I really, really like it. And yeah, it's funny. I think it does get forgotten a lot because technically I would think that this is probably one of the hits off the album. But it's kind of like one of those forgotten gems that I feel. I mean, it, you know, throughout time. So but I mean, I really, really like it. It's a good track.
Like, how
Now,
much does it get played live?
I have to look that up. When you asked me that before Jim started talking.
I don't know. I thought you had this all. Well, because Jim said it's probably. I said I forget about it, and Jim said, yeah, it does get forgotten about.
It's been
So now
played
I wanna know.
100 times live, which probably
Yeah.
isn't very much because again, it was probably mostly on that tour, right? The Killers tour,
Right.
or the Beast tour, or whatever.
So it's Iron Maiden's fault that it gets forgotten about.
Sure. Oops, wrong tab. Okay, you got me all confused now with that question. And also the lyrics, he says, "My life is empty, nothing to live for." I was reading some stuff today about it. Somebody thinks it's an extension of the Murders in the Rue Morgue lyrics. And they thought it was like a concept album. I don't think it's a concept album, of course, but I guess the lyrics could be still left over from Murders in the Rue Morgue, where he has nothing to live for because he killed somebody and people are still after him. I don't know if it has anything to do with that at all or not. But anyway, Staicha wants to get the killer, so we better get to it. So Killers, Staicha.
Oh man, it's hard because like this one's such a big one because this is I think this is just one of the best Iron Maiden songs of all time.
Yeah.
This I guess would be tied for me with my number one. The intro so good. Again, another example of like a really good build up, but it's probably all the ooh yeahs that Diano throws in. Like you just maybe if it was only instrumental, but all the yeah, you're like, oh, I'm so ready for this to kick in. But okay, and the lyrics to this are why I think the Diano era has such good lyrics. The lyrics to this melt my face off. Like it's such a good song, but I don't know, for some reason the lyrics they stress me out in exactly the way that metal is kind of supposed to. And just yeah, that early songwriting, it puts me into that anxious headspace. So my best friend is a drummer and he's not into metal, but he talks to me a lot about how metal kind of is like psychologically supposed to make you like anxious and like that. He describes it better than I do, but sort of like how the drums come like a little bit before like you are going ahead of the beat a little bit. And he's like, so it creates that like tension and anxiety. And you kind of realize like, yes, I guess that is what I like in music. It doesn't slow down and have that groovy feel. It's making it a little bit too fast for you. So you are like kind of built up. And that's a good example of what this song does. But I think it's like, the lyrics to me and just all of it, but in like the best possible way. This song does what I want metal to do to me when I listen to it.
And Jim.
Oh yeah, I mean this is an adrenaline rush times 10. This is the best song on the album. My 1A, there's another one on there that I really really like, but I mean that bass in it is phenomenal, and Diano's voice, I mean this is just perfect. And I mean I love the lyrics are so nice and dark. And yes, I'm thinking about it as Staicha was talking about the being anxious when you're listening to it. It gives you that sort of that feeling, not really butterflies, but more of an excitement, anxious feeling that you know the parts of the song and what's going to happen next, and it's pretty cool. And I mean the lyrics are so awesome and nice and aggressive and dark for the especially for the time. I mean it's awesome. It's an absolute. It's a killer track. Killers is killer.
So apt.
I also love. I had wrote down. I love Diano's screams and O's.
Yeah.
O's and ahs or whatever Staicha said. But and of course his evil laugh at the end was pretty good too.
Yeah.
And
Every song could do with more evil laughter.
Yeah, and you could always tell. And this is probably the most metal song on the first two albums. This one is maybe the most kind of metal song. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's about somebody killing people. I don't know if that's why, but
That's way too
oh,
much to think about. I like my mind just snapped when you said that. I got too much.
but yes, this is my favorite song off this album. It's my 1A. I don't know if I have a 1B. I guess I'm looking forward to seeing what's 1B. And this isn't even your favorite one, Stacia, and I guess we haven't come to that yet. So let's go to Prodigal Son, which has, before anyone asks, never been played live, which
Whoa,
is
never?
kind of surprising. I don't
That's
know why you
odd.
think they would have did it on that tour, but it says it's never been played live. So let's see, Jim, what do you think of Prodigal Son?
It's another awesome song. It's got kind of a funky start to it, though. It kind of goes into where it's like, I don't know, the way I feel about it, it's like it's kind of got a bit of an Alice Cooper kind of vibe to it when it starts, and it kind of has that, I don't know, like a top 40 kind of, is that where they're going to go with it? But then it just takes off. I mean, it's kind of folky in my mind, and I think this is the longest track on the album, if I'm correct. But I
I'm
mean,
Yes.
pretty
it's
sure
it's an
that's right.
awesome track. Yeah, it's an awesome track, and I mean, again, excuse me, it's got a perfect spot on the album because I mean the next song is phenomenal, but it's a great track, and it's just it's kind of a little bit different. It's kind of tweaked a little bit than the rest of the album. But it's got that. It's a really good tweak. I don't even know how to describe it. It's hard to describe. Unlike like you got bands that try stuff and kind of fails, doesn't sound right on the album, and then but these guys did it, and I think it worked out. It worked out awesome.
And Stacia.
You know what's funny, Jim? You saying that, I think maybe this album was more ballsy than because again, it is. It's like definitely a risk that you take with this, and it is kind of folksy. I wonder. So I really like Diano's singing voice.
Mhm.
Obviously, like the slower tracks are not something I sit and listen to, and this one is like long, but I do love it, and I love Diano's singing because this is like different vocally than the rest of the album. And I wonder
Mhm.
if maybe that's why they don't do it live. Like maybe Dickinson is just like, ah, this is not my forte. Like, this is just not, I don't know, within my range or whatever. Like, I wonder if maybe that's why they don't really play it live. Didn't get around to it when Deanna was there. And then Dickinson was like, ah, this is not the range for me. But that said, I do really like the vocals in it. I have to be in the mood for it, and I'm never like quite in the mood for it. But it is a fantastic song, and I do really like it.
Cool.
So 42 years after this album was recorded, I finally read the lyrics for this song. As I guess, because I think maybe in the Killers album, the lyrics didn't come with it. I'm kind of thinking it just came with a plastic sleeve, if I remember
Right.
correctly. I'd have to go look. So I didn't have the lyrics. And of course, you couldn't look them up back then. Um, but so I was reading the lyrics today, and there's a Lamia is mentioned in the lyrics. So I looked up what that is, and it's a mythical monster with the body of a woman, or with the head and breasts of a woman and the body of a snake, said to prey
Nice.
on human beings and suck the blood of children. Steve
Well,
Harris is so evil. Anyway,
you know what? I
this
would
could
let
be a Venom
Lamia take me
song.
out
This
to
could be a
dinner.
Venom song.
Yeah.
I would let Lamia take me out to dinner if she paid.
Absolutely. At least you know you're not going to be next to a crying baby. She'd take care of it right quick.
Maybe that's why Bruce will sing the song. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe.
Then, oh, and before we go on, and before I forget, Stacia, you brought up the punk thing a few times, and I always find it like if you watch the old documentaries or read old interviews with Steve Harris, he hates punk, and he hates it whenever anybody says they sound punk or they have punk influence. He always hates it, but everybody else always sees it and hears it. So I just wanted to bring that up to attention that yeah, Steve Harris always hated whenever somebody said that. But even the album cover on the first album, that which we're gonna get to later, is a punk guy that they just added some hair to try to make him less punk, but he still looks like a punky kind of
Well, if
rocker
you didn't
there.
like punk so much, you should probably have not tried to sound so punk.
I know. Well, I guess maybe he thought that, I don't know.
You know what
Maybe he
though? The
just
thing
didn't want to
that's
admit.
kind of interesting. So I think, and I don't want to go on too long of a tangent here, but trying to remember the 80s, you're looking at the tensions being played out in the Thatcher years in England. So the thing that's really coming up is street punk. So you've got Oi, and they couldn't sound less like that, in my opinion. But I think of like that Motorhead infused kind of where Black Sabbath was very like slow, crushing, powerful metal, and then you've got bands like Venom. Did I meet my quota? I talk about Venom at least once. Who decided to come out and just have that Motorhead sound where they're like, I just want it to be fast, like fast and punchy, and that is what this was. But again, like the 80s, when you've got like the mods and rockers, and you've got like the skinhead punks. Yeah, totally. They don't sound like that. And I could see him just being like, oh, this shit sucks. But yeah, that's not what anybody means.
And speaking of fast, the next one's a faster one with Purgatory. Staicha, what do you think of Purgatory?
So for absolutely no reason that I can really put into words, this is my favorite song on this album.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like, this is my absolute number one. I'm obsessed with this song. And like I love the lyrics to this, but to me it's just such a like hopeful song. Like it's fast and it's fun, and I love the vocal harmony so much. I love the melody of it, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of good for if you're in sort of like a fucked up place. It kind of makes this is kind of like a mood boosting metal song to me. But yeah, this is my total number one. This has been like a breakup song for me too. Like, this has gotten me through a breakup before. I love this song so much. This is my 1A.
Now, what do you think the lyrics? What do the lyrics mean to you? Or do you? I know you don't care about lyrics too much, but do you have a thought of what they really mean, or you just like them?
Oh, I mean, like, the please take me away, take me, so like, it's, to me, it's just sort of anywhere but here, but I'll find like someplace good, kind of sort of a hopeful, like, I will not always be in this situation kind of song.
Okay, Jim.
Oh yeah, this would be my other number one. I mean, my 1A, 1B. This is my other one.
Your other number one too?
Oh yeah. Like, I go with Killers in this. And what a way to end off an album. I mean, this is just a smoking song. I mean,
well, there's still one more song. Sorry.
Oh yes, that's true. Yes, there is. You're correct. That's
okay,
right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But this whole time I was like, I wonder if we'll have the same favorite.
Yeah, no. I mean, this is just, it's an amazing song, and I love the fact that this was, I believe this was the second single released off it. So they did the artwork for this Purgatory, and I believe it was originally the Number of the Beast artwork. So, but they liked it so much that they had Derek Riggs go back and recreate the Purgatory with the devil kind of morphing into Eddie. So no, it's an awesome song. I mean, this is one of my favorite, probably in my top 5 Maiden songs. And in the Di'Anno era, this is like tied for number one, I would say. It's just awesome.
Now, I was reading today about the song lyrics here because I just wanted to know what Staicha thought it was about. And this one person I was reading thought it was about reincarnation. And in some of the lyrics, like thinking of an age-old dream, places I have never seen, fantasies lived times before, split my brain, melt through the floor. I don't know. That's really doesn't have anything to do with it. But he says stuff like, body tries to leave my soul, or is it me? I just don't know. Memories rising from the past, things like that, which could be reincarnation, or it could just be something else. But most of the time, Iron Maiden is easy to decide what the song's about. Like Killers, it's pretty easy to figure out what that song's about. But there's a few songs that are a little bit harder to figure out what they're saying.
I just feel like it's like wanting to be somewhere else, but like with someone. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought it was super complicated, but I don't think that was Di'Anno's intention ever, to be, really convoluted and complicated. I agree though. A lot of their songs are kind of storytellery, like Killers for sure. But yeah, this one kind of feels like I just want to be somewhere else with you.
And then we finish off the album with Drifter, Jim.
Yeah, it's a great track. I mean, this is got fast guitars, I like how it slows kind of in the middle, and then the thumping drums just light it back up. I mean, it's a great track. I love it. It's this whole album. I mean, I you know I think I had the debut on my top 50, and I didn't have this. And I'm kind of, after reviewing it and going through it again, I've kind of fell in love with it again, because I haven't listened to the whole thing, in a few months. And but I mean, oh, it's a great track. It's a strong track. I like it. Ending off a strong album.
Staicha.
I love this too. I think this is a really, really strong ending. I like how well you can hear the bass. Like, I think the bass really comes through. Honestly, this is a good album for percussion in general. And I know I keep saying it, but I love Dano's vocals. There's one part in this song, it's so hard to describe, but it's like around the 2-minute mark, where the guitar does something like super weird, and it's one of my favorite moments in the album. So it's like I do like this song, but I listen to it just for that one like small chunk of weird melodic stuff that the guitar does. But yeah, a great song and a really, really good ending.
Also, and you made me, like you mentioned, the bass again, and you can tell that the person that leads this band plays bass, because you can hear it on the, especially in the, well, I guess probably on all the albums, but especially the early albums, if we're kind of talking about that, you can always hear songs or it's started by Steve on the bass, or you got a little part in the middle with the bass and then your little drum stuff. So yeah, you can tell that it's not a guitarist that started this band or whatever. And there's one lyric line on that song that should be on every metal song, I think. You can tell me if you agree or not, but it's, of course, I want to cuddle up to you tonight. Which I didn't know. 42 years later, it took me to find that lyric was in this album, because I didn't know that. But so I guess they wanted to make up for all the killing earlier in the album. So
I think it's like you need some comfort after all the killing. Like, you want to go home and be the little spoon after so many murders.
Okay, so that's the album. So we're gonna rate it. Staicha, what do you give it? What would you, might as well do? What would you give? Sorry, the first one, and then what would you give this one? Just for
so the first one is a 10 out of 10 album for me, 100%. So I would give this one a 9 out of 10 for being almost as good as the first one.
Jim,
I go with the first one, definitely a 10. This one, a 9.5. I mean, it's an awesome album. I like the production on it. You know what? The only thing that confuses me about the album is there's so many variations of it. Like, when it was originally released, it was released with 10 songs on it. And then the American release had 11 when they added Twilight Zone to it. And then all the re-releases that are after that are like, have, you can get one with parts like Made in Japan as a bonus disc, and then you can get, I think I have the 98 one here that's got Twilight Zone on it, and it's one of those smart CDs that has Rothschild and Killers on it, Live at the Rainbow. But it they need to make it, and I know on Spotify they just have the 10 songs, so it's kind of weird that they haven't kind of come up with a solid base of what this album should be, because they are missing that. Twilight Zone's a great song, and it's funny that I think they released the album, the re-release, in June, of just after they released it originally in February, and for the American release they had the extra song. So it just makes kind of it's kind of weird, that's all. I mean, I guess bands did it back then quite a bit, but 9.5 for sure. I mean, this is one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums.
It is definitely a good one.
I would also give it 9.5. Now, I did the podcast with the debut album, and I don't remember what I gave it, but I'm thinking I probably gave it 9. I think I like this one better than the first one, I think, but I'd have to go back and listen to see what I gave that one.
Well, I mean, the production on this is better, but definitely. I like that muddy production. Everybody's always talks about it, but I like those original debut albums have that. Like even Megadeth's Killing Is My Business. I mean, everybody kind of craps on the production of it. Yeah, it's pretty rough, but I like that. I like warts and all when it comes down to my metal. So, I don't like it too polished.
Jim, I think this is why you and I have such similar taste. I think that's kind of like the crux of it, is that I like the murky production.
Yeah,
So even when you and I were talking about like early Bathory,
yeah,
and you're like, man, like why is this so good? Because you were mostly familiar with like the Viking metal, and it's like, yeah, it's that early shitty production.
yeah.
And I really, really like that. I agree with you so much that like the production amped up so much for this album, but I love the like those early days. And usually, and it's like, I'm not trying to be like some edgy dickhead, but it is usually the first album that I like the best. And that's
Yeah,
usually why, because the beginning is, before the budget. So
yeah.
but
Well,
like
the
I just like
Misfits,
that sound. Oh yeah,
like
exactly. The
you brought up the
Danzig era.
Misfits. You can't get any
Yep.
more murkier than that with Danzig.
100%. Blake, you should listen to some early Misfits.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. I know who they are, of course. I think I've heard Metallica play the Misfits, right? They've done some Misfits
Yes, they
covers, I
have.
believe. Yeah.
So
So
there
that's
you
probably my
go.
only taste of it
But
so
I
far.
mean, come on, one of your favorite bands loves them, so it's
Yeah.
probably actually, and that's I like discovered some of my favorite bands that exact way. Like I discovered Sodom because Cradle of Filth used to cover Sodom, so I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I should check out this band, and look how well that turned out.
Okay, now I was going to ask you too about seeing them live. I'm not going to answer this question because I've answered it on 3 other podcast episodes. So, Jim, have you ever seen Iron Maiden live? And I don't know, favorite concert or whatever you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, I mean, legendary. The reason why I love Power Slave is my first metal concert. I think I was 13. My parents let me go. There was a curfew put in place in Halifax. If you go on YouTube and look up the Halifax show, they have a newscast about how they thought there was going to be riots because satanic metal was coming here. And it was Twisted Sister opened for the Stay Hungry tour. A 13-year-old kid there with my friend. We got dropped off. We went in, and it just blew my mind. I mean, I don't have my shirt anymore. I wore the hell out of it. I mean, it would never fit me now, anyways. I'm a little bit more filled out a lot more since then. But anyways, no, that was awesome. I mean, Power Slave. That was my first one. I've seen them 3 times. I've seen them for Seventh Son, and I've seen them on No Prayer for the Dying. And they haven't come back to Halifax since then. Now they're way, they need a 20,000 plus, plus 50,000 seater in order to play now, not the rinky dink little 10,000 seater we have here. So, but I mean, I love every time I got to see them. I think who opened for them? I think on I can't even remember. I know Anthrax opened for them one time, and I can't remember the other time. But I think it might have been Queensryche. But it was that first show. I measure all shows I see against that first Iron Maiden and Twisted Sister show.
Whoa, that's a high bar to live up to.
Yeah.
And Staicha, what about you?
So it's funny because I got asked that today, and I couldn't remember if I'd seen them 2 or 3 times. But so yes, I have seen them for sure. I remember the first time I ever saw them. Like, so this is a good example of how good the show is. So I had just gotten divorced, but I had this extra ticket because I was supposed to go with the person I was married to, who also did not like metal at all. But I was like, I'll get us 2 tickets. But then, so I have this other ticket for all my other like friends who don't like metal. So I bring the person that I always jokingly call my heavy metal girlfriend because I have to remember all the metal she likes. But her first metal experience was me taking her to the show. I was like, please come see one of my favorite bands with me. I swear you'll like it. I know it's metal, but like, you like guitar music in general because her favorite band is U2. So I was like, please just come. They put on such a good stage show. And she's like, okay. By the end of it, she left such a big Iron Maiden fan. The spectacle of it just blew her mind. Because I mean, comes out and the first thing is that plane coming out, and she was like, where the fuck am I? This is amazing. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Klansman came on and she was like, well, this is my favorite song in the entire world now. And to this day now, actually, every time Iron Maiden comes, she comes with me. Like, we go together. But their performances are mind blowing. Like,
Yeah.
I love Iron Maiden so much, but you don't even have to love them to love the show. You could go in hating Iron
Exactly.
Maiden and have a good time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just briefly say my first show was also the same one that Jim mentioned, was Twisted
Cool.
Sister and Iron Maiden, but in Toronto, of course. And I was a little older than 13. Not a lot older, but a little older. And my shirt probably still would fit me, but I don't think I have it anymore. Because I don't work out as much as Jim does. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So now we're going to talk about, okay, for the top 10 list, usually we would do like top 10 albums or top 10 songs or whatever, but somebody made a suggestion. Paul from Australia, hopefully he's listening to this episode, suggested we do a top 10 on top 10 album covers. And he said, you could probably do one on Iron Maiden alone. So that's what we're doing. We're going to pick our top 10 Iron Maiden album covers. First, I'll just give a quick thing about, we all know Eddie now, but Iron Maiden's I was just watching an old documentary, just refreshing my memory on some things on Iron Maiden's old stuff. And Rod Smallwood, the manager of Iron Maiden back then, said we needed a mascot, or we needed a figure that could stand out. We can put it on the album covers and everything. And so he met Derek Riggs. He had an interview with him. He saw a picture of a punk album, which turned out to be the debut Iron Maiden album when they added some hair to it to make him not as punk, but he still kind of looked punk to us anyway. But they had a single out before the album came out for Running Free, I believe was the first single. And they had Eddie character was in it, but his face was blackened out, so you couldn't see his face, so that his face was shown on the album cover instead of the single. And that's how Eddie was born. And since then, of course, Eddie, we'll get to this when we do our top 10 list, but he's been a mummified Egyptian god, a power slave, lobotomized mental patient in Peace of Mind. Of course, he came out from the grave and live after death. He's been a tree on Fear of the Dark, and a cyborg, of course, is Somewhere in Time, and so many other things. And of course, they made a video game after him, Ed Hunter. And he also is featured as an unlockable character in a Tony Hawk Pro Skater computer game. He's a skateboarder, right? That's all I really know about
Yeah.
Tony Hawk. But anyway, and so usually we go 10 to 1, but I thought since we're doing something different, album covers, we're also going to include album covers, single covers, or even the live album covers or the best of covers, whatever you wanted to do this. So we'll let Jim go first with your top 10 list, and let's just start with your number 1 and go down to number 10 instead of what we usually do.
So my number 1, I'm more of a classic guy, but the Number of the Beast. I mean, that was the first. Probably, I think Made in Japan was the first cassette I got, but the Number of the Beast, wicked cover, my favorite. My second is Killers. I mean, long-haired Eddie, that leaks into my number 3, which is Iron Maiden debut, because they're just, I mean, you got to go with the classics here. Number 4 is Power Slave. Obviously, that album has a huge meaning for me. Number 5, Peace of Mind. Number 6, Live After Death. I mean, that was the tour. So, from Power Slave, from that tour. So pretty much. So, it's like taking a piece of the concert home with you. And that cover where he's coming up to the grave, phenomenal. A live album, I know, but regardless. Number 7, I'm going with Seventh Son for number 7, which is kind of ironic. But number 8, Somewhere in Time. I remember when I bought this, I got the cassette from a buddy of mine who worked at A&A Records and Tapes, and I ended up paying $20 for it when I went into the store, but he sold it to me a week before it was released. They used to get them in ahead of time, so his boss wasn't there, so he sold it to me. I didn't pay the sale price, paid the full price, and brought it to school, and everybody freaked out I was the cool kid for a week, so that was neat. Number 9, I'm gonna go with number 9. I'm going to go with the Phantom of the Opera, the single. So that where Eddie's playing like the piano there, and he's got it all with his cape on, and that's really funky. And then number 10, I had this shirt for the Aces High single. So I had Eddie in the cockpit there on the back of my shirt. And I remember my first job in 1985, I went to go work in a pet store. And I remember it was my second shift, and I wore that there. And I remember the manager gave me crap over it. But anyways, it was pretty funny. And then my honorable mention, which I love, is Bruce Dickinson solo album, Accident of Birth, released in '97. I think there's 3 different covers. The first, I think it's the UK version where he's coming, the jester's coming through the guy's chest, and you can see the guy's face. And it's it's a Derek Riggs cover as well, so it's one of the ones he did for Bruce. So and they that one's wicked. I'd love to get a copy of that. I have just the regular one with the jester on the cover, but still a really, really cool one. I mean, he's done so much great artwork, but that's it there.
Okay, Staicha, what's your top 10 list?
Oh man, solid choices, Jim. I noticed you had a lot of like the studio albums up there.
Yeah.
A lot of the artwork I like the most comes from singles. So my number 1 is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Like that single,
Wicked.
that cover blows my mind. And then the cover for Purgatory, that single, just another super strong one. And then my number 3 is the Run to the Hills single. And then number 4 is the single for Number of the Beast. I swear I do like other covers. It's just the top is very single heavy. And then number 5 is the Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. I don't know if you guys know what that one looks like, but that's such a sick one too. And then number 6 is oh my gosh, sorry, my cat is not happy with me right now. Live at Donington. That's a really, really good one too. Their live albums are really nice. So number 7, Death on the Road. And then we're going to go into the studio album. So my number 8 is Number of the Beast, that studio album. Number 9, Fear of the Dark. I love that album cover.
Yeah.
And then, number 10, Killers, because Long-Haired Eddie is, that's still like kind of, I guess, how I always picture Eddie in my mind. Like he's never bald when I think of him. He's always got the hair.
So Staicha, is the Benjamin Brieg, the Reincarnation, is that the one where Eddie's digging the grave, or he's got a pick?
Hold on. It's funny because I was like, the ones I like are so busy. So what I did is I went onto their site and I was just, I was looking through all of them and I was like, okay, these are so much to take in.
Yeah, I see it too. He's in a graveyard holding a.
Yeah, that's a cool one. I missed that one. That one was wicked. Yeah.
Yeah, the moon's up there and stuff. That's a good one too.
Yeah, it's a cool one. I want to change that one to one of mine.
It's funny because like if you go on their site and you look through them, you're like, this is almost impossible to like narrow down because there's so many insanely good ones. But yeah, so that was actually after I saw that album cover, I was like, I just want to sit and listen to that song. And that's actually what I was doing while I was waiting while I was charging my laptop before this.
It's funny, the Wicker Man single cover is a band photo, which is weird. It's the only one.
Yeah, weird.
So I don't know why they did that. I think I have a Running Free live. Well, it's just a live shot of the Running Free live single, because I have a few other singles on my wall behind me. I don't know if you can see them, but I have a few other vinyl singles too. Because yes. Oh, so I'll get to my list. Sorry, before I forget. So my first is also the Number of the Beast. Now, even though this list is supposed to be about the covers, not about the music, but the Number of the Beast was the first album I got, and I used to look at it and was just so amazed at everything. So it's still my number 1 cover too. Power Slave was my number 2 cover, just because I remember looking at it and loving the details, the really small hieroglyphics and everything, and looking for that symbol that he always puts on every album. I assume you guys know about the symbol thing. So I thought it was kind of like Find Waldo, because there was all these small little images, and I'm like, where is that thing? And of course, it's right in the middle. But let's see, number 3, I got Women in Uniform single. And obviously I have this because Eddie has 2 girls on his arms, and I've never had that, so I thought that's my And it's also, this one comes after the Sanctuary single. And on the Sanctuary single, Eddie is standing over a character that looks like Margaret Thatcher, the old leader of the United Kingdom. And So she's fallen. And so on this one, he's walking down the street with these two girls, and you see Margaret Thatcher's character standing behind a wall holding a weapon and ready to attack Eddie. And my number 4 is Sanctuary, the one that came before Women in Uniform. I probably should have put Sanctuary first, so it would have made more sense, but I like those two. 5 is the Run to the Hills single, Eddie fighting the devil on a big rock there.
So
Killers, number 6. Now I love the small details on the cover, like in the apartment building where you see a person looking out his window, you see a cat in one of the windows, you see his symbol in one of the windows, you see a couple doing something in one of the windows. I'm not going to say what. And then you see a store called the Kinky Sex Shop. And I'm thinking, where is this street anyway? No, right.
See, this is the funny thing though. Like the artwork is so detailed that yeah, there's a million things on there that you're like, what? Even like the reincarnation of Benjamin Brigo, it's like it's a guy with a pickaxe coming out of a grave, but you're like, I don't know, man. There's so many like tiny things all around it, like so much, like not a centimeter of space is wasted on those album covers.
Yes, and also what you just said, Staicha, I like this. The Killers Eddie, the Northern Beast Eddie, the best because yes, he has the long hair and he's the most metal looking. And he has the jeans on, and that was me back then. Now I don't have as much hair, but I'm still wearing jeans. But I'm not killing anybody or playing with the devil. Anyway, number 7, I got Peace of Mind, which of course is when they took his head out. And so I like that he has a skull and he's got the screws on the skull holding his skull back together, and he's chained in a padded cell. And I like on the back cover even where they have the door open, so it looks like Eddie's escaped. And I also liked inside where they had the band sitting around a table, dinner table, a candlelit dinner table with a brain there with on the plate, surrounded by vegetables. And it's no wonder I don't like vegetables. Kim, if you're listening, this is why I don't like vegetables, because she's always questioning me saying I need more vegetables, but I don't want to eat brains and vegetables. Okay. And number 8, I got Live After Death. Same reason as Jim said. Number 9, I have The Trooper. Did anybody have The Trooper single? I don't think you did, but
no.
I like that. Eddie walking over fallen bodies from a war, carrying his ripped up British flag there. And number 10, I got Iron Maiden's debut, just because it's their debut, I guess. And I did have one honorable mention, Brave New World. I thought that was a cool cover with just his head up in the sky and the city landscape or cityscape or whatever under it. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's our list. Now I did want to mention, so how important do you think Eddie is to Iron Maiden and to how much money they sell, t-shirts, posters, everything? What do you think about that, Jim?
Oh God. I mean, this is Eddie's a business himself. I mean, you can't have enough Iron Maiden shirts. That's the biggest thing. I mean, they're just so awesome. And I loved when I know they just came to Toronto last year, in Montreal, I think, or maybe it was Montreal, not Hawaii. Anyways, they over the summer, and they had the Canadian version, like they had Eddie in a Canadian shirt. So that's really cool. Where they go, they tend to have that theme there. I'm a member of their fan club, and you can buy their. I mean, the stuff's expensive, but it's definitely worth it. And I mean, him as a mascot, I mean, it's kind of like, I guess, not to bring up the Misfits again, but the Misfits skull is kind of the same kind of thing, And then you've got, even for Megadeth, on a bit more of a lower end, not as popular, but the Vic Rattlehead character, which is pretty cool. But nobody comes close to the marketing of Eddie and Iron Maiden. And it's such, I mean, you see you can see that anywhere as it's recognizable. And I mean, and what's great about it is the cover art and all the shirts and all the promo around Eddie and the mascot and everything. The music is so much stronger, and this just adds to it. It just completes the package. It's not like you get a band that has a cool covers, and they suck musically. This is the whole package, and I mean, it's so important to heavy metal, I believe.
And Staicha, what do you think?
Well, it's funny because I think the thing that we may be saying without saying it is that Eddie was a good business decision, genuinely, and that's just correct. And I think the thing when you have a mascot like that is really helpful is if there are lineup changes, it's a little less noticeable. I mean, it is if you're like a nerd like us and you like to dig into that stuff. But you know, when you think of Iron Maiden, the quote unquote person that you picture is Eddie, and that makes like subtle changes a little bit easier to digest because that's all you're going to think of. But yeah, when it comes down to it, absolutely amazing marketing.
Yeah.
I think the first tour I seen, like you mentioned, Jim, you mentioned the shirts and whatever. So I had a shirt with he had a Canadian, he had a hockey jersey on, and it said 999 on it instead of 666. And of course, he looked like Wayne Gretzky, of course, with the 999 on it instead of just 99. But he had the 3 9s, which is upside down, of course, 666. But it just had the Canadian tour on the back of that shirt. So yes, it was marketing genius. I'm sure they did that everywhere they went, every country they went. I'm sure he had their flags wearing something, doing something. I'm sure they had a lot of shirts they just threw away, but
that's the thing, and no matter what a gimmick it is, like, I mean, metalheads deserve sick designs too, right? Like, everybody's got sort of their own thing, but when you like metal, it's cool to be like, no, like, we have really cool intricate artwork as well. So I mean, it's not a slight that it was such a good marketing gimmick. It worked out well for us, because how many sick Maiden t-shirts do we all have? Like, between the three of us, we could probably fill a trailer.
And on top of that, I mean, Kim Kardashian wears it, so if it's good enough,
it must be cool.
Oh, she probably only wears it because she loves the music so much.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, to cap this off, so Blake, you mentioned like the Running Free single. Do you want to hear kind of a neat fact about that?
Yes, of course I do.
This is a great one. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. So there's a label called Neat Records that is really big for the new wave of British heavy metal. Like, they signed a huge chunk of new wave of British heavy metal bands. And the owner of that label, like, especially around the late 70s, was like, I'm not ever going to sign a metal band. Like, metal's dead. It doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. It's no longer culturally relevant. And until Running Free came out, and then he was like, oh shit, I guess metal still matters. And that was when he was like, I'm going to start signing metal bands. And then they became one of the biggest record labels for the new wave of British heavy metal. But if it weren't for Running Free by Iron Maiden, who knows?
And one other thing, that documentary I was watching the other day, I think it was the leader of either EMI Records or Capitol Records. I can't remember which one it was, but he said at the time that Iron Maiden was starting, they wanted to start supporting a metal band, and it was either going to be Def Leppard or Iron Maiden, and they chose Iron Maiden instead of doing Def Leppard. And I think, even though Def Leppard is still around, playing to a few hundred people, okay, maybe a few more than that, but not as many. I think he definitely made the right choice with Iron Maiden there, and all the money they probably made from that.
Staicha, was on Neat Records, was Venom ever on Neat Records?
Oh, yes. So the reason I know all about that is because it was Kronos who worked at Neat Records in the 70s and kept trying to get his band on that label because he worked there, but it was his boss who was like, metal's dead and it doesn't matter. And then when Iron Maiden released Runnin' Free, and the boss was like, okay, I guess we can start signing them. It was Kronos' job to go to clubs and start signing metal bands. And then eventually he got his own band on there. So yes, Venom absolutely is on Neat Records, but really, like, Venom wouldn't have, hit the way they did if it weren't for Running Free by Iron Maiden.
Cool.
Fun fact.
It's funny you said, oh no, I forget just what you said. Sorry. Now I'm gonna forget what I wanted to say. Okay, never mind.
It's gone.
Yes, it's gone. I can edit that out if I want to, but I probably won't. Okay. Anyway, anybody have anything to add about Killer's album or Iron Maiden or whatever you want to talk about?
I think we're good. I think we nailed it. I think we all love it.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a good episode. I love doing these top 10 album covers or single covers or whatever. That was a good idea that Paul from Australia had. So I hope he does listen to this and enjoys it. And he can tell us, he can email me and tell us what his number one album is. Two of us have the number of the beast, but it might be sentimental reasons too that we have that up there, at least for me
It's a
anyway.
possibility.
Okay, thanks for joining me, guys, and thanks for everybody for
also
listening.
remember the
Again,
beast is
check
on
out
all
our
three.
website, www.themetalpit.org, and check back next week for another episode. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.